Which brings us back to the President of the United States, again pushing something near and dear to unions and liberals in general, that is jobless benefits, extending them.
These leaders in the Senate who are advancing a misguided notion that emergency relief somehow discourages people from looking for a job should talk to these folks. That attitude, I think, reflects a lack of faith in the American people.
I thought I was the only one who had these pregnant pauses. Anyway, the constant extension of jobless benefits in the face of Republicans who said that they aren't against the extensions, they're against not paying for those extensions, to our all-stars and how this plays out, including Jonathan Honig, Lizzie McDonald, and Mike Norman. Jonathan, what do you think?
Well, Neil, I listened to the president today, and with all due respect, I thought it was a speech more befitting a community organizer than the leader of a constitutional republic. The president played this same kind of hand with the health care debate. He gives us a sob story, and he referenced it in the sound you played of these down-on-their-luck individuals, and says, well, anyone who opposes this entitlement, new entitlement, extending this entitlement, is this awful Scrooge, this terrible, evil, nefarious Scrooge who doesn't care about poor people. But, of course, that's not what extending these benefits are. It's not charity, Neil. It's government force, and that's what the president's whole program is all about.
Mike, obviously, we feel for people who are hurting. So anytime you're against extending the jobless benefits, you always look like a cad. I think the argument isn't so much whether people deserve a break, but how do you pay for that break? Am I missing something?
Yeah, what do you mean, how do you pay for that break? I mean, the government pays for the break the way it pays for everything else.
By going into hot.
It spends money. I mean, look.
And you're okay with that?
Neil, we keep coming.
No, I know, but you're okay with that.
I'm okay with it because you cannot have private credit contracting like crazy and then the government.
So how will extending jobless benefits expand and lift that credit?
Don't you understand that it's all cyclical? If people have income, whether it's coming from a job or if they're receiving it in unemployment benefits, they go and they spend that income into the economy.
Well, then we'd see it already in the economy. We'd be going gangbusters. These jobless benefits would be the gift from heaven.
Well, look, we're suffering from a huge lack of demand, like this union guy said, and there's one way to cure it: provide demand. If the demand comes from
so the government will provide that. The government will help provide that.
Are the banks providing it, or is the private sector?
Fair enough. What do you think of that, Lizzie?
Look, John F. Kennedy said the best form of, I'm going to paraphrase, unemployment or welfare is a high-paying job. And how do you create those jobs?
He said it's a high-paying job.
It's a high-paying job.
Yes,
exactly.
That's how he
said it. That's right. But, you know, so, and that's, in other words, yes, we want to help the jobless. Yes, you want to give unemployment benefits, but how do you get them a job? Period. That's the question.
It's
and
easy.
If you, wait, hang on a second. If you have a pro-business regulatory regime, look, we know Wall Street went off the deep end. We know there was reform that was needed there. But I'll tell you something. We are speaking Japanese without even knowing it, because look what happened in Japan with their zombie decade, their high-tax structure, their spending. What happened there is now a third of the workforce is temporary, up from 20% in 1980. That's a danger of this economy, that we turn into a temporary workforce situation. We do not want that. We want a solid, continuous job, not just
Mike is rolling his eyes at what you're saying.
Look, you give me the job, I'll create jobs in 10 minutes. It's not hard. Look, Neil, there's nothing wrong with our economy. We have everything here to create wealth and prosperity, okay?
Yeah, but you running a business you create it here. You create the job in Mexico or China.
Somebody has to spend. If the private sector holding on to their $2 trillion or whatever is not spending, somebody has to spend.
All right, so Johnny, what do you make of that? Private sector's not doing, the government will force the issue.
Well, Neil, you can't forcing productivity. I mean, men are not animals that can work harder just by whipping them harder. And government spending.
Wait a minute, it works at News Corp, but go ahead.
Government spending does not create work. I mean, Mike is speaking straight out of the president's playbook. But redistributing wealth doesn't create any more of it. And yes, Mike's right. We can print more money that doesn't create any more wealth. It just devalues the value of the wealth we already have.
If the money goes into the creation of real assets, you know, factories, employing people, of course you create more wealth.
All the central printers, i.e. central bankers, can print all the money in the world, but they can't make banks lend it. And that's the problem. And banks aren't lending it because of the new capital reserve structures coming in. There's a new regulatory regime, so they're on a spending freeze, which is ironic because D.C. should be on the spending freeze. But I hear it, and that's the backdrop. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm not saying that banks are right or wrong.
It's been a little unfair. 3 against 1. Let the one respond.
She made exactly my point. That you can't force the banks to lend. You can't force the corporations to spend their money. If they are not look, somebody has to spend. That equates
you can
to
make
income
the
into
environment
economy.
inviting or you can't. They've obviously done the latter, so why should the government force the issue and compound the problem?
How did they make the environment inviting? The economy is collapsing. We have
I know, but
20
then
million people
what has it done to make it inviting so that we can find them the resources and the incentive to change?
Right.
If you provide the investment into the economy, that would lift up employment, it would lift up output,
Mike, there's no
they'll start to invest.
Incentives. Where are the discussion of incentives in your argument?
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know what she meant, but exactly.
You kind of do.
We're going to take a quick break here. We're going to have a lot more on this whole issue later in the show. But remember when the government was rushing like crazy to close all those auto dealerships? Well, one's young and wants to spend. The other's young and feeling spent. One is the Prime Minister of England and the other is the President of the United States. And let's just say they are not only an ocean apart when it comes to fixing their country's financial messes, they are oceans apart. Britain's David Cameron cutting back on spending just as his meeting mate this week. Barack Obama is only planning to rev up the spending. Let's just say things could get interesting. Lizzie, how interesting?
Well, pretty interesting because David Cameron's basically saying he's going to cut back a lot of public sector jobs, over, I think, 680,000 of them. But the news today, too, about how Britain is impounding, what's been left behind in safe deposit boxes for more than 15 years or more.
That's right, that's right.
What are they doing over there, scrounging around the seat cushions to basically pay for public works and for growth program? I thought, what is Britain doing? They're looking around for any kind of
obviously, to Cameron, Mike, I mean, go slow on BP. You cool it on the BP bashing. Does he have a ground to stand on?
With the BP?
That's what the segment's about, yeah. Did you do any...
it was about that? I didn't know it was about that either, did you?
Go ahead.
No, I think, first of all, it's remarkable because, what is he going to achieve with the spending cuts and austerity? I mean, he's going to increase unemployment in his country. Economic activity is going to go down. Look, they did it in Ireland. Ireland now is suffering through a terrible, terrible economic downturn with very high unemployment.
And Ireland debt was downgraded. Good point.
Yeah, but Ireland had to do it because Ireland's no longer a country that issues its own currency. The UK is not, Britain is not in that situation. We don't have to.
But Mike, how is Britain's currency done? It's been decimated. And in fact, Britain was the country that got the whole bailout bonanza started. They nationalized Northern Rock, which is essentially the UK equivalent of Fannie and Freddie.
I forgot about that, John. You're right.
That was 2007. And even now, they're dealing with this huge bloated national health care system. As I said, the currency's been cut in half.
But Jonathan, for any country that issues its own currency, taking austerity as a policy
I wish it was austerity.
Is just ludicrous.
I wish
it's
it was
ridiculous.
austerity, Mike.
You guys are real, Einsteins here. But Mike, you think the government should rev it up and spend more. Lizzie, you do not, right?
No, I mean, look, if austerity was terrible, then, Western Germany and Japan will still be in a crisis mode after, they went into austerity programs after World War II. But I do think Mike makes an excellent point.
There was billions and billions pumped in by the United States after World War II.
Mike, if you let me, that's
and they had austerity.
Let her explain.
But no, it wasn't just billions and billions pumped in. They had to
you
go
ever
on their
hear of the
own.
Marshall
If you
Plan?
just let me finish, Mike, I did. I know about the Marshall Plan, but they also had to go through their own austerity and also in West Germany. If you just let me finish, I'm about to agree with you.
I'm getting you back. I'm getting you back from the last segment.
You're agreeing in the end with him.
I am agreeing in the end with him that the government does need to somewhat step in on a climate crisis. I hate to say this,
but not overdo it.
Boost demand with an infrastructure project like building bridges and fixing highways.
Okay, so she's agreeing with you in a very belabored way.
That's right.
Look, the austerity in Germany is totally inapplicable analogy because there was nothing there. It was all blown up.
Battle.
Jonathan, what's your point here?
Well, unfortunately, Cameron isn't preaching austerity. I mean, as Liz pointed out right off the top, he's proposing this massive public-private partnerships. So we have two questions with U.S. and the UK. Spend a lot, President Obama, and maybe spend a little bit less, as in with the Prime Minister Cameron. Both are destined for complete and utter failure.
All right, we'll see how the meeting goes, and we'll compare crumpet notes and all that tomorrow. In the meantime, tomorrow we've got AIG Chairman and CEO Hank Greenberg joining me exclusively. His take on what seems to be a mess of a company he left. Or did he? He's tomorrow, here, and only here. Here's Dave Asman now.